Hello and welcome to Path Breakers with me, Neha Bothra. My guest on the show, Meera Kulkarni, the founder of Forest Essentials, is a pioneer in the area of luxury Ayurveda. Today we'll talk to her about what it takes to build an iconic brand ground up and take it to the world. Stay tuned to this story on Path Breakers. Meera, thank you so much for joining us on Path Breakers. It's so good to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
What led you to luxury Ayurveda? You were looking far ahead of your times. What gaps did you see in the market?
It's a very unconventional way of starting. I had no business sense at all. Ayurvedic products that were available in the market were largely sort of more medicinal, more substandard. They were inexpensive. There wasn't that kind of quality that I would associate with an Ayurvedic product because I was exposed to Ayurveda. We lived in our childhood in a certain way. Everything was fresh and it was seasonal. I then sort of realized that products like that were not available unless you made them at home. So I thought to myself, why is this gap in the market? It wasn't really from a business point of view. It was just question at that time, more for myself. We have a home in Rishikesh, in Uttaranchal, and that whole area is sort of Ayurvedic. You have all the Veds there and you have these pharmacies there. So when I did go and ask, what I was told is that nobody would buy a really superior product because it would become too expensive and there was no market for it. So I think that's really how the idea began. And I thought to myself that there must be many, many people like me who would be willing to pay a little more for a high quality product. That's really how it started.
So what was the first step you took once you realized the gap and there is a market out there?
I started experimenting with soaps. I think I experimented with them largely because it was so enjoyable. I loved the whole process and putting in the honey and putting in the almonds and putting in the cream. And so it was enjoyable for myself. I did a few batches and then I gave them out to some friends. And everyone who got it said, it's fabulous, I want some more. And that's how it started.
You started with 2 lakh rupees and I think 2 employees out of the garage at home, right?
Yes.
Now you have a $1 billion company. You employ more than 1,300 people. What a journey it's been without any venture capital funding. You said you weren't very well versed with the business part of it. How did you crack that? Was it intimidating at some point?
Again, because it wasn't a business venture. I have to tell you that it wasn't really a great requirement of money at any time. It was a passion project. And I think I was very, which I still am, I'm very circumspect about, we still don't borrow. We have no borrowings in the company. So we made money and we put it back into the business and so on and so forth, which was a much slower way of growth. But again, there was no goal to get to. It was so organic. And there was no need to really get any funding.
It was all word of mouth initially, wasn't it?
We spent no money for the first, I think, 7, 8, 10 years on advertising at all.
Nowadays, companies spend more on marketing and advertising than on research and development.
Yes. So it was a different time and it was a different focus.
I believe everything you do is in-house, starting from the conceptualization of the products to bottling it, to marketing it, and of course, manufacturing it.
When we started with the formulation, so one thing I have to tell you, Neha, is that there are standard Ayurvedic formulations. And they're all written thousands of years ago. And they're all there.
Yes.
It's not that you had to take something and reformulate. The basic recipe is there. In the beginning, there were many Veds and many people that one had to go to sit, to understand. There was no one, by the way, that I have met in my journey till today who has not been hugely supportive. That's how we went back into traditional formulations. The thing about Ayurveda also is that it allows you a certain area where you can add or innovate as you go along. So because of that, we took these recipes and I wanted to make it pleasurable. That someone would use these products the way they're supposed to be used and also enjoy using them.
Sure.
You know?
So the textures, the fragrance.
Yes,
and
the textures, the fragrance. So while you keep the core intact, obviously, because otherwise it's not going to be effective. But you don't have to have something which you're unable to use it and it's greasy and it's oily. It doesn't have to be, but it used to be. That laid the foundation. And that was 2-3 years into the business. Fundamentally, it wasn't even a business. So it was just trying out new things, seeing if it would work, you know. And that's how it happened.
At what point did you actually start expanding your range? I think you started with the Saundarya range.
Yeah, I think the first thing that became sort of a differentiating factor was using gold.
Wow.
You know, it was very interesting because gold in Ayurveda can be used for skin. I mean, you know, it's got wonderful skin properties, but no one had really used it before.
It still is one of the best sellers, isn't it?
It is. Commercially, the first step we ever took was we were approached by the GM of the Hyatt Hotel here. Somebody had given him a few soaps to try, and he was very happy with the soaps. And he approached us, and he said that, would you be able to make, you know, amenities for the hotel? Because they were doing a special floor or something like that, and they wanted high quality amenities. And I had no idea what amenities were. We did finally make some amenities for them.
I think 250 hotels currently you partner with, right? In terms of supplying them shampoos and soaps and other spa products.
So yeah, we supply the Taj, the Oberoi. So we chose to be able to just deal with, you know, the top quality hotels.
The market had a couple of dominant players that were also in the Ayurvedic herbal genre. How did you get the popularity and the acceptance in such a short period of time?
I think it was a revolutionary idea to have a luxury Ayurvedic product. There was a shift in the market, and the shift was beneficial for us because people started wanting to know what is in the product and what are the benefits of what you're putting in. It was a good time to get into it. In 2008, we were approached by Estee Lauder. And now when I see it, it was so early in the day that one didn't really realize the implications of that. But we entered into a collaboration with them.
Was Lotse also in the works around that time?
No, Lotse was already there. It's difficult to imagine in this day and age that it actually exists like that. Until you actually see it there, many people are skeptical about, because it sounds good and you know, it may be a PR exercise, which it's not. It's when you go there, you actually see them.
So everything is organically grown and locally produced by the community.
As much as possible. We have women in the factory and men who have worked there for the last 20 years. And there is so much positivity and there's so much dedication and they are so happy. It really is something that translates into the products. When you have people who are doing this by hand and who have such positive energy.
In effect, you've also developed the entire community there, starting from schools to empowering women. Tell us a bit about that.
So when we went there, we decided that we wanted to employ women to work there. The women were not allowed to work. So I went to the Sarpanch of the village. It was a long and sort of difficult process. Ultimately, the women started, you know, it started in 2s and 3s. They were the wives of the men who used to work for us. So it started like that, and then 3 more, then 4 more, then 5. It was like that. We opened bank accounts in their names. The joy of actually having a bank passbook and knowing that this money is going into your account, your husband can't get it. It's money that you have
financial
control.
Freedom, something they would have tasted for the very
for
first time.
the first time. It was a liberation for them.
Yes.
You know, they were like, they couldn't understand that you can control what you want to do, and you want to do something for your kids, you can do it yourself. And so it was a huge, and it actually changed many lives. The kids going to school, because the wives could then pay for going to school and so on and so forth.
Over the 2 decades that you have been in business, what are some lessons that you have learned? Starting from scratch, there would have been challenges that you had to work around.
I think the most difficult part when I started to try and find the ingredients, the best ingredients, but they were not available. If we wanted to go and source herbs, for instance, you'd go to these guys and they had these huge godowns filled with sacks of herbs, which were like full of dust. And I don't know how long they had been there for.
In a country like India,
Yes.
where you'd expect it to be plentiful.
Yes, but it wasn't. And that's what they were using. I mean, whoever was asking for them, that's what they were getting. I remember went to somebody and asked them for pure oil. So what do you want? What is pure oil? So I said, badam ka tel. They had oils which they smelt of almonds, they smelt of mustard oil. They were all adulterated oils. Yeah, it was crazy. And when I said, but I don't want this, I want pure, they looked at me as if I was mad. And what do you want to use it in? I said, sabun mein. He thought I was really lunatic. So those were the things, because you had to do it yourself. It was just not available.
So you basically had to create the ecosystem around it in terms of sourcing the ingredients and then manufacturing it.
Yeah. Building this without that extreme fixation on quality was not worth the exercise, because then it was...
Be another Me Too in the market.
Yeah.
Speaking of Me Too's, there are so many D2C brands all competing for attention, all claiming to be natural, herbal, made safe. In fact, I do see that the packaging is a copy of Forest Essentials in many cases. The ingredients are copied. The philosophy behind Forest Essentials is copied. Is it challenging to stand out in such times with so much clutter and noise?
I personally don't look at competition myself, because it has never bothered me. But when we're at work and everyone says that it's ridiculous, we take out something and immediately there's somebody who has exactly the same thing. Then whatever we have on as content or whatever we put, suddenly there are 27 other brands who's saying the same thing. But I mean, one has to take it as an inevitable part of becoming more successful, because there's nothing you can do about it. I think people today are more discerning also. If somebody is giving you something for 10 rupees and saying that it's got this, it's not possible. So the consumer also has become more discerning, which was not the case that many years ago.
Do you think we need stricter regulations when it comes to conveying that a product is natural, or even on the ingredients that a company claims to be natural? I think this is pretty loose right now. I mean, how do you really define a natural product? What is toxin-free?
I think the government is doing it. And we are seeing that coming through. It's been a slow process, but these things take so much time and everyone finds so many loopholes. There's nothing you can do, especially in a country like ours. What do you do? Hopefully there will be this, that you can't have a fly-by-night person coming in and saying this is what it is, because the regulations have to be much more stringent.
What's the plan in terms of actually expanding your global footprint?
It's been something that we wanted to do it before the pandemic. And then obviously for those 2-3 years it didn't happen. So it happened last year. The dynamics of working there in London particularly is very different from even Dubai and the Far East, because here they're more similar to Indian culture. But I think when you have I think the key word is credibility. And of course you go in as a new sort of company and it's a new market.
So do you have to tweak your offerings a bit to cater to that crowd in terms of the weather or in terms of preferences of local consumers?
So not tweaking the products, but yes, the preferences, there are certain things that you would sell more there.
In current times, we see a lot of companies claiming to do product innovation. Now that innovation largely stems from a trending ingredient. So today, if rosemary is the talk of the town, 4 months later, you see jars of rosemary shampoo, rosemary oil everywhere. Yes. Is that a sustainable trend in the beauty industry?
Well, I personally don't agree so much with that. Something suddenly become...
Everywhere you look, you see it.
It's all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's funny. Suddenly everyone is talking about ghee. Before that it was aloe vera. Then subsequently, I mean, something new that comes up all the time. But I think they've been around and they've been sort of part of traditional usage as well. But these fads that come and go, I think, are something that is possibly a millennium thing, or I'm not quite sure what it is. But I again think it's faddist to a degree. Ultimately, the things that are there are still going to remain. I mean, something may be in focus for a while, but it doesn't sort of cut out everything else. I mean, I'm amazed to see these 30,000 brands, where they've come from, and they all look like clones of each other.
Have you used any of the products?
No, I haven't. But I'm sure some of them are good and some of them are not. But personally, I don't.
There's also this whole concept of contract manufacturing where you don't in-house manufacture it, you give it to a third-party manufacturer to do. Is that something that you would consider a safe strategy for Forest Essentials going forward, considering the way you want to expand to other countries as well?
I don't think so. I think the whole thing of the product that is manufactured yourself, there's a huge, huge difference about getting it done from a contract manufacturer. Today, when you put up a company so quickly and you give it out to a contract manufacturer and you get it back and you put in all the PR, I mean, it's not possible. And that degree of, actually keeping the kind of quality control it's not possible. So would I advocate it for us? No. But I don't know, it probably works for other people.
There still is a lot of dependence on the offline model for Forest Essentials because it's an experiential experience. How are you trying to replicate that online? Is that now increasingly an important part of your go-to strategy for targeting many of the younger consumers in the market?
It has been in recent years. Mm-hmm. So you do reach a wider audience, but it's a fickle audience because they're not really, until they actually sort of experience and understand what they are using. It could be, from that point of view, it becomes, are you getting a similar product for 500 rupees and are you getting it for 2,000 rupees?
The whole discounted game comes into play.
Which is why it's been something that I personally am not comfortable with. I mean, everyone says to me that that's the way it works there.
But there's never any discount on your website or even in any of the stores or, buy one, get one free kind of a thing. Is it hard to compete then in the online space with such mindless competition?
No, the consumer at the end of the day is looking for high quality and value. All of us. Some people have a sale once a year, for instance. And it's still great because you're waiting to see when that... But somebody who's 70% on sale all the time, you eroded the brand completely. Whether you made money or not, I'm sure you're making money, but you eroded the brand. And that's not important for some people. So I think for us, the branding is important and giving a value proposition is important. So there's a line there. Sometimes you have to go with the market and you have to do what you have to do. Mm-hmm. But I think mindlessly doing it and not is the balancing factor.
So are you now trying to expand the addressable market? Are you trying to grow that niche into, say, including many of the millennials as well? How do you really get their attention?
Recently, we've just launched our new makeup, which is, natural makeup, which is actually skincare infused makeup. So we find that has had a lot of younger, consumers. What we are doing is not a trend. It's sustainable. There are brands who specifically deal for that younger consumer who has a very short attention span and wants to have whatever is in fashion. So I don't think we deal with that specifically because I don't think we can deal with that.
All right.
But yes, if it is somebody who wants to look good and also have the product do good for your skin, then there is still that younger consumer. I think we have some part of that. The idea is obviously to grow, so it can't remain that niche. There's a larger consumer out there who may not have experienced your product. So I think that is what we're trying to do. But the profile of the consumer is similar.
So 24 years, the business has grown exponentially. Give me a sneak peek into the next 20 years.
Well, I wish I could. I think going global is a large part of it because I think we're fairly sort of established in the Indian market. We've been lucky enough to start doing it much earlier. So we've, got into tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So that is here. But I think going global and making an Indian brand comparable in its category to any of the best brands in the world is the next goal.
I do know that you have overcome so many challenges. Could you tell us some lessons that you've learned from life, going through many of these personal ups and downs, and yet emerging so strong and successful? What really helped you ride the storm?
Okay, so personally, I think women are much more resilient. When there is a crisis, there are only two ways to deal with it. You either go under, or you don't think too much about how difficult it is. You just think that you need to overcome it. When you think you need to overcome it, then how you are to overcome it becomes easier. Because it's not thinking, can I overcome it? It's thinking,
How will I overcome it?
How will I do it? So it gives you that ability to say, okay, so the sky has fallen. How do you go ahead?
Where do you draw your inspiration and strength from?
I'm basically very spiritual, as opposed to being extremely religious. I have a certain inevitability about life. I feel if something is supposed to happen, it will happen. And if it's not supposed to happen, then you can only push it to a point. It's not supposed to be there. So that's...
The power of acceptance.
It is the power of acceptance, because I'm very, very fatalistic. I just feel what is meant to be is meant to be.
I, see this very calm person in front of me, and it's almost as if you're in a Zen mode. Are there mindful practices you do to help you get to that state of peacefulness and acceptance?
Realistically, I don't as much as I should. I'm trying to do meditation more than I've ever done. But it's difficult for me to stay still and be in the state that you should be for meditation. But I'm trying. I will succeed soon.
Meera, thank you so much for your time. It was great speaking with you.
With my pleasure. Thank you so much.